The gamers who are afraid of Season 2 of The Last of Us, we may have some good news. I'm Troy from Arcs on TV, and today we're talking about possible major changes between The Last of Us Part 2 and The Last of Us Season 2. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to be notified whenever we post brand new videos. Now, on to the story. This is going to be a spoiler-free video up until the end. When I'm about to give you spoilers, however, I'll give you a warning and a time code so you can skip past all of that. The link to the article I'm referencing from comicbook.com can be found in the video description. The Last of Us showrunner says Season 2 will be different from The Last of Us Part 2. Craig Mazin, the showrunner behind HBO's The Last of Us, has teased that the show's upcoming second season will be quite different when compared to certain parts of The Last of Us Part 2. Previously, Mazin has confirmed that Season 2 of the HBO series would look to directly adapt The Last of Us Part 2, which is the 2020 sequel to the original game, and while the broad narrative strokes from Season 2 are still going to stem from Part 2, Mazin has now indicated that he and fellow producer Neil Druckmann might already be planning to shake things up from what the fans would expect. In response to a question from comicbook.com during a recent press event, Mazin spoke a bit about what is currently in the cards for The Last of Us Season 2. Broadly, Mazin again made clear that The Last of Us Part 2 will serve as the template for the upcoming slate of episodes, but he also stressed that the fans don't yet know what we might have in store when it comes to changes. Although Mazin said nothing about what those changes in question might look like, it was conveyed that there will be some departures. Quote, "It will be different, just as this season was different. Sometimes it will be different radically, and sometimes it will be barely different at all. But it's going to be different, and it will be its own thing," Mazin said of Season 2 when compared to The Last of Us Part 2. Quote, "It won't be exactly like the game, it will be the show that Neil and I want to make," end quote. When it comes to making changes, though, Mazin also said that he has great anxiety about The Last of Us and tackling its second season. Mazin stated that if there is something about Season 2 that fans are currently worried about, it's also something that he is stressing about behind the scenes. As such, Mazin won't be looking to make changes to The Last of Us for the heck of it, as every decision is one that is calculated and mulled over for a long period of time. At this point in time, HBO hasn't said a peep about when The Last of Us Season 2 will air on HBO and HBO Max. Based on what star Pedro Pascal recently teased, however, filming on Season 2 could potentially begin before 2023 comes to a close. If it does indeed come to pass, it suggests that the release of Season 2 could happen in 2024, or perhaps in early 2025, but only time will tell if this plays out. This makes me wonder how different they're talking about. If you've played The Last of Us Part 2 and don't want any spoilers, you might want to skip ahead to this time right here. Now that you've been given the warning, obviously Joel gets his brains bashed in by Abby, who's the daughter of the surgeon that Joel shoots the brains out of at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. We actually saw that played out in the season finale of The Last of Us on HBO Max. Now, in The Last of Us Part 2, Joel is with Ellie and his brother Tommy when they run into Abby's gang. Abby finds out who Joel is, and then makes Ellie and Tommy watch while she takes a golf club to Joel's head. This leads to Ellie trying to track down and kill Abby throughout the game, and Abby's trying to avoid Ellie. Their paths intersect quite a few times, and while the story was okay, there were a ton of logical inconsistencies that would make you think that the characters just aren't very smart. This also has an incredibly depressing downer ending that doesn't leave you with much hope for these characters' futures. What could they possibly be talking about that will depart from all of this? Will Abby's story be altered? Will Joel not be murdered so that they can keep Pedro Pascal on the show? They could shoot some flashback scenes of Ellie's memories with Joel that we skipped over in Season 1. Also, they're in Tommy's community for quite a few years between the end of Part 1 and the beginning of Part 2, so maybe we'll get some scenes mixed in here and there from that era, and so that we can keep Pedro in the mix. I know that my wife personally started watching the show because she likes Pedro Pascal, and then she played the first game. When she heard what happens in the second game, she decided to completely skip it. So they could really go many different ways with all of this and keep Pedro around, since he is such a fan favorite and all. There was also a huge backlash from the fans after what they did in Part 2, the video game, so they might try to rectify that in the show, but I guess we'll see. Besides that, I could see not following the timeline of Part 2 quite as faithfully, just because I don't feel that that game has quite as many loyalists to it. Neil Druckmann, I believe, made that sort of a passion project that he didn't have the same exact team for from the first game, and it just didn't hit in the same way. But maybe I'm wrong. Either way, comment with what you think they could mean about big changes coming from Season 2 of The Last of Us and the actual The Last of Us Part 2 video game. Do you feel that there needs to be any changes to the story, or should they have it a completely faithful adaptation? Did you play the games? Did you enjoy them both the same, or one more than the other? Also, did you like The Last of Us Season 1 on HBO Max? I pretty much fell out of zombie shows and movies in about 2020 with The Walking Dead, and I was limping my way to finish just that much of it. I still haven't finished all of that show, but The Last of Us was so much less about the zombies and much more about the growing of both Joel and Ellie and their character arcs. I much more enjoyed that with the occasional side characters and side story, rather than The Walking Dead's ever-growing cast that I was supposed to remember and care about. Also, share this video around to everyone you know, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell to be notified every time we post brand new content. I'm Troy from Marks on TV, and we'll see you next time.